No? And don't let them control you. You control them. No? And so now I'd like to go to our next theme. And I'd like to look at superheroes. No? And who is a superhero? Who is a superhero? Can somebody give me an example of a superhero? Swami Vivekananda is a type of superhero. Anybody else? Parents? That is such a beautiful answer, you know. How old are you? 25? I come from the West, no? I come from the West. And if somebody said that in the West, being at 25 years old, that person will be committing social suicide. It means that people who are 25 or in that age group, they will not even associate with that person, you know? How can you, that's so uncool. How can you say that? Because we have no idea what a real hero is, no? So you all gave all wonderful examples of real heroes, no? But this is what society are deeming heroes now, no? Iron Man, no? But who are real superheroes? Not so long ago, that not the Indian culture, the Vedic culture. The Vedic culture sees no separation in terms of body, because you're not the body, you're Atma, your soul. The Vedic culture teaches Sanatan Dharma. Fundamentally, Sanatan Dharma only teaches one thing, not religion, love. Because God has no religion. And not so long ago, maybe 100 years ago, maybe even less than that, that when children and adults would come home, that they would come home and they would worship the Lord at home in his deity form. They would worship the Bhagavad Gita. They would worship the Ramayana. They would hear stories of Hanumanji. They would hear stories of Lord Shiva. They would hear stories of Krishna, the supreme hero. No? And that's how society, that was the culture that they were eating. No? And today, we come home and we do worship. We come home and we do puja. I joined the temple in South Africa in 2012. And so it's mandatory for any monk who's living in the temple. One day in a month, you have to go home and spend it with your family. One day, right? And so when I would go home, when I would enter the home, I would notice that my parents were worshipping something. They were doing puja, right? At the center of the home was the one-eyed deity. The one-eyed deity. What is that one-eyed deity today? The one-eyed deity. We all worship it. I will accept phone or television. I go home and everybody's sitting around the television, no? Previously, everybody sat together and we worshiped Bhagavad Gita. We heard stories about Hanuman. We heard stories about Lord Ram. Now I go home, sitting around the one-eyed deity, watching like this. Worshipping the one-eyed deity, right? Watching IPL. Worshipping Virat Kohli. No? Worshipping Mahendra Singh Dhoni. Not that these people are bad or anything like that, no? But these are not the real superheroes, no? And culture eats strategy for breakfast. This is the strategy we're putting into our hearts, into our homes, into our consciousness. Who has children here? Who has kids? Martha, do you have kids? Do you have kids? Kids? To all the parents, would you allow, please raise your hand, would you allow your children to speak to strangers? Do you allow your kids to speak to strangers? Okay. In the West, it's a little bit different. We have a saying, stranger danger, right? And so like that, in the West, we never ever let our kids speak to strangers. But as soon as we put the one-eyed deity on, who are we bringing into our house? We're bringing the superheroes of the 21st century. No? Everybody knows who's James Bond, right? Now, James Bond, he's meant to be cool. No? If James Bond heard you say what a hero is, he will laugh at you. No? Because this is what a hero is to James Bond. He is a hero. And this is what society perpetuates as a real hero today. No? A real hero is somebody who, his motto is that he drinks alcohol until he gets very drunk and almost passes out. No? And his favorite drink is? A martini. Shaken, not stirred. No? So fundamentally, he's a drunk. Right? But we glorify this. He's an alcoholic, and this is it's glorious. Bhagavad Gita teaches, chapter 3, verse 21, Yad yad achariti shrestas, no? Tat tat eva trojana. Whatever activities a great person does, common men follow in his footsteps. This is our leader, no? This is the great man of society who's getting drunk on alcohol, and this is cool. And what will our kids want to do? Have martini, shaken, not stirred. So he's always getting drunk, right? He's always killing people. This is a sign of what a real man is. Masculinity is about, real men don't cry, they say. Real men don't cry. And what happens? When the real man doesn't cry, he suppresses his emotions because he's hiding from himself. Because boys don't cry, it's a sign of weakness. Repression is taking place. And remember what we were saying about the secret quote? I forgot the quote. You're only as sick as your secret. So he lies to himself, right? Repressing his emotional feelings that he's feeling, his rage, his animosity. It's natural to cry, but he's repressing it. And as a result, no healthy communication is taking place. And what happens? This happens. He communicates through a violent way, through killing people. So he can't communicate his feelings because he's repressed his emotions. Words is not a medium which he uses for organic and holistic resolution of a relationship or of a problem. What does he do? He kills somebody. License to kill. No? And so he's advocating ahimsa. He's advocating violence. No? But this is seen as cool. And real men commit violence. They hurt other people. And the other thing is that he fools around with women. Right? He's a Romeo. He hurts, he abuses, he exploits other women, and he exploits himself by doing this. No? And in all his movies, he's trying to sleep with as many women as possible. So he's a drunk, he kills people for a living, and he sleeps around exploiting women and himself in the process. And this is the hero. No? So how many people want to be like James Bond? Questions at the end. How many people want to be like James Bond? How many people would be happy if this was your brother? How many people would want their sister to marry this person? How many ladies would want to marry somebody like this? But this is cool, no? This is what society says is the goal of life. This is what we must achieve. Get drunk, have lots of money so you can have many sexual relationships, and if somebody doesn't like what you do, bomb them. Start a war. No? This is how we mediate problems, and this is why the world is suffering so much. Because we don't know who real superheroes are, and we don't know what real masculinity is, and we don't know what real femininity is. Because we're getting all our information from James Bond and from leaders like Donald Trump. With all due respect. The last Kshatriya, the last Raja Rishi, the last real Vedic king was Shivji Maharaj. When he died, the real Raja Rishis died with him. So what we're going to do now is a natural progression from the last slide to this slide is what we were looking at a manly man. You know? We have a misconception of what masculinity is and what femininity is. You know? When you think of what it means to be a man, what masculinity means, what words come to mind? What does it mean to be a man? To be brave? What about superior? Are men thinking that they are superior? Let's be honest. Let's look at society. We live in a patriarchal society, right? Means that generally men control everything, right? Even the language. Look at the word history. Not her story, his story. No? Two, a man and woman work the same job. Even in the US, the wage is different for a man, is different for a woman. Woman is seen as less, man is seen as more. And this is happening because we don't understand what real masculinity is and we don't understand what real femininity is. So what I'd like to do now is try to look at the psychosocial makeup of man and the psychosocial makeup of women. All right? And in order to do this, we have to ask the question, are we created equally? I'll give you an example. Have you seen children play? Like kids between the ages of 2 to 5, maybe. Have you seen children play? Right? When boys play, have you seen boys wrestle? Boys wrestle. Wrestle, like fight with one another, you know? Have you seen girls wrestle? I've never seen two girls wrestle. All right? And for 2 years, I studied psychology and I studied neuropsychology of children. And I counseled children for 6 months of my life, traumatized children, right? I was a trauma counselor. And in all my studies, I've never seen two girls wrestle. I've never seen that, no? I've never seen that. Do you know why? Because men are becoming like women and women are becoming like men. Honestly, this is what's happening. No? That's happening. And so let's look at the psychosocial makeup of man and the psychosocial makeup of woman. No? This is how, now what I'm about to say, please don't shoot me. Okay? What I'm about to say is based on neuropsychology, it's based on the Vedas. Neuropsychology and the Vedas are saying the same thing in this regard, and they are generalizations. They are not axiomatic truths. An axiomatic truth is a universal truth. It's true tomorrow, it's true today, it's true forever. These are generalizations. All right? This is how the male brain functions, and this is how the female brain functions according to neuropsychology. Man uses the left side of the brain, which is considered the rational side of the brain, right? So it's associated with logic and reason and rationale. It's associated with being calm under pressure. It's associated with stepping back, and when emotions are involved, he doesn't get bewildered by the emotions. Generally, this is how the man's brain functions. He's either very rational, very analytical, in one sense very cold also. You know? He can acquire lots of book knowledge. It's easier for him to do that. You know? Higher levels of IQ in one sense. So he's either analytical or he's either left side brain where he becomes very emotional. Right? When he becomes very emotional, he loses sense of self-control. He loses the sense of the rational side of the brain. Right? And so when he's covered by emotions, he can do anything. He loses control. He can start a fight. He can kill somebody, no? Because he's either left side or right side. He's either rational or he's either emotional. And when he's emotional, if he doesn't pull his emotions back, he becomes bewildered by his emotions. No? So that's a man's psychology. Now, a woman's psychology, a lady's psychology, is that she's at any given time or simultaneously, both hemispheres of the brain are firing together. Left and right are working at the same time. So she's at the same time analytical, at the same time emotional. And so being emotional is a good thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing. IQ means a high level of acquiring knowledge, right? It's not a real measurement of intellect. You just acquire knowledge, right? EQ is emotional intelligence. Generally, men have higher degrees or higher abilities to imbibe book knowledge, right? But women have a higher degree of EQ, emotional intelligence. They're very sensitive to the needs of others. They're very sensitive to their needs. They're very sensitive to children's needs also, which is why they make wonderful mothers. No? And today, motherhood is seen as something less. But really, as you're saying, mothers are the real heroes in the society. You know? The mother acts as the first guru. When the child, when its mind is in its formative stages, when it's a sponge, the mother is giving the culture that the child will eat. The mother is shaping the destiny of the future of society. Such an important and intrinsic role. And yet motherhood is seen as something less. Because you compare a woman to a man, and because a man goes into the corporate world, because a man gets paid more for that, because society says he should get paid more for that. Because it's a patriarchal society, and man is seen as better than woman, women think that the role that they play is less, that they're inferior, which is not accurate, which is not true. Man has his strengths, and woman has their strengths. Man has their weakness, and woman has their weakness. And I'm not advocating that the woman's place is at home. Some of the best doctors, some of the best scientists are women, no? And some of the best chefs are men, no? And so like that, we just have to become aware of our psychosocial makeup, which is a secret of happiness also. When a woman goes into the workplace, she's just as intelligent as a man in terms of imbibing knowledge. No? I go to BITS and I see most of the girls there, the young ladies, are way more intelligent than the boys, no? In terms of imbibing knowledge. No? But when she goes into the work environment, she experiences stress 7 times more than that of a man. Which is why today, women in the corporate world are dying at age 21 of heart attacks, of stroke. The life expectancy of women in the USA, corporate America, has dropped from 74 to 65. Because they're not aware of the psychosocial makeup, thinking they're equal to man. It's not that you're equal to man, it's just that your psychosocial makeup is different. It's not that you're better to man, and it's not that man is less than you. It's just that we put together differently, no? And I'll give you an example of this, no? Is that, before I go into the next slide, I just want to say is that because of the way the brain functions, because of the psychosocial makeup, the way we interact with the world is slightly different also. And so we're going to look at that first by looking at the man. By how when the man loses touch of his senses, or when his brain goes too much onto the emotional side, he becomes bewildered. And we'll look at that with a video of Rajnikant. All right? It's a video of what masculinity is not. Means this is not the only aspect of masculinity. A very important aspect of masculinity is that which we learn from the Ramayana, for example. For example, if you see the supreme man, Lord Ram, look at how he interacts. Look at Hanuman, supreme warrior, a brahmachari, a monk, a celibate. How sensitive he is the needs to women, to Mother Sita. Narad Muni, another monk, a man, behaving very sensitive to the needs of others, not screaming and acting violent and going crazy, you know, throwing people around the room. That's not how he's behaving. And so I'm playing this video to show you this is not only what masculinity is. And I know it's a video of Rajnikant. I'm a big fan of Rajnikant. You know? I'm not playing this video to belittle him or degrade him or bring him down. I only met him like 6 months ago. Meet him means I saw a video of him. It's not to find fault with his character or anything like that. Fundamentally, he's playing a role in the movie. You know? So I think it's funny, but I think it's also a life lesson that we can learn from. Everything in society is lessons that you can learn from. You know? So we'll play this video. And remember, this video shows the falsity of what we think masculinity is. You know? This is what we think masculinity is, no? That when communication fails, then you just beat people up, no? And so this is an example of a man's man, right? When a man's man sees this, he thinks, oh, this is cool, you know? I saw this and I thought, whoa, this is far out. I want to do that, no? But a real man will think, an intelligent woman will look at this and see, you know, he's strong enough to throw people around the room. He's strong enough to throw men around the room. Now, I weigh maybe 60 kgs or 40 kgs or whatever. If we get into an argument and mediation fails where he stops using words, this is what he's going to do to me, you know? This is what the James Bonds of the world are doing. You have a problem with your wife, you beat them. No? That's not real masculinity. A real man doesn't do this, no? Look at the example in pastime. One example where Lord Ram raises his hand to Mother Sita. One example. One example from Vedic literature where Lord Krishna hits Radharani. Or even chastises Radharani. Radharani chastises him all the time. No? When he killed the bull demon, she tells him, Hari, you meant to be the protector of the cows. No? You named your planet Goloka, the planet of the cows, no? You are Govinda, you give pleasure to the cows, no? But here you're killing this demon. How can you do that? You contaminated yourself, no? Go take bath. And he takes bath immediately, no? And this is real masculinity. It's to not be influenced by your emotions, no? In a negative way. That when challenging situations and emotions take control and anger and violence want to appear, then you use your intellect, the right side of your brain, your rationale. You don't let it cover over your intelligence with emotions, no? And you pull yourself back and you become introspective, self-controlled, restrained, calm, compassionate, cool, humble. And this is what real masculinity is. This is the way Lord Ram behaves with Mother Sita. This is the way Hanuman behaves with every woman. No? This is a real superhero. No? And so, like that, we don't know what real masculinity is. No? And like I was explaining, that when men lose track of their right side of the brain, because for them it's either left side or right side, no? They can do some crazy stuff, all right? And I'll give you an example of this, is that, now, when I saw this picture, do you know what I thought? Oh, when you see this picture, what do you think? Who thinks this is a very bad idea, what he's doing? Be honest, who thinks it's a very bad idea? Okay? When I saw this, I thought, what an awesome thing to do, you know? I thought this was great, you know? Jumping off a window into the pool with a broom, you know? I thought this was fantastic, you know? Because I have a masculine conditioning, you know? And so when a male goes on to the other side of the brain, he does dumb stuff, you know? And look, when he falls, one of the most vulnerable parts of the male body is exactly where he's got the broom placed, you know? And so like in cricket, you really defend this part of the body more than you defend your head, you know? And so when somebody gets hit in that location of the body, the person that gets hit is torture. It's torture for him, right? If you've ever got hit in that region on the cricket field, you'll know it's the worst thing to happen to you. But it's the greatest thing to happen to everybody else. Because it's the funniest thing in the world when somebody gets hit in the box in a cricket field. It's funny for everybody else on the field except for you, you know? Because men are insensitive, you know? A woman would want to help the situation. Men point and laugh, you know? I'll give another example of men doing dumb things, you know? Incidentally, this is one of the reasons why in the West, car insurance is 5 times more for men than it is for women, you know? And I'll explain with an example. When I was in matric means 12th standard. Like every student, when I have time to study, I don't study. And when I don't have time to study, I don't study. So basically, I don't study. You know? And so, 12 hours before my final exam, which is going to determine whether I'll have a university entrance or not, I decided to open the accounting book because now hate is a bad word. I don't like to use hate. But I passionately despise with great vehement rage accounting. Any accountants here? Sorry about Peru. It's a personal thing. Right? And so I really didn't like accounting. And I left it for 5 hours, 12 hours before. And so I had friends, you know? And it says that energy goes where consciousness flows. Energy goes where consciousness flows. And if you want to understand your state of mind, look at your best friend. Right? So I had friends who were very close. And also all of them didn't like accounting. And all of them didn't study. And all of us are cramming the night before, trying to just put in as much as possible. And we're taking these little caffeine tablets. You know? So we're taking more and more, and we're getting hopped up on these. There's just energy all over the place, you know? And so it got to about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I couldn't do it anymore. And so I picked everybody up with my mother's car. And so we came to my one friend's house. I grew up in a very small surf village, a very beautiful place called Port Shepstone. And so I told him, you know, I can't take it anymore. Let's just go and fail tomorrow. What's the worst that's going to happen? You know? So let's go back home. So my friend's home that I went to was one person, and 4 of us, myself included, 5 people came to his home. So I was going to take them back. So I came into the driveway in that position. So you can imagine I have to reverse out the driveway. You know? And so we all sit into the car. I put my seatbelt on, and then so I have this epiphany. I have this epiphany, this realization manifests within my heart. You know? And so I tell them, our home is about 3 kilometers away. We all live in the same neighborhood. I feel that we should reverse home. I feel it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I feel we should drive this car backwards and go home. Right? Now, is this a good idea? No, it's not a good idea. No? So, what do you think all my friends said? All boys. Not only yes, they said, oh my God, this is the best idea you have ever had. And I was like, yeah, I'm a genius. And this is what we did. The trip took us under 5 minutes to get here. It took us about 25 minutes driving in reverse at night on one of the main roads also to go home. You know? And so generally, you know, they say men are more intelligent than women. I am living proof that men are morons. Men do dumb things. Men are idiots, fundamentally, you know? And so like that, I did that when I was 16 years old. You know? I was a young man, right? Today, would I do the same thing? Knowing what I know now, some 15 years later, or 16 years later? As a man, would I do the same thing? Yes, I will definitely do the same thing. Because men are crazy, no? If I got into a car and I asked them, should we drive in reverse? And 5 of them said yes, I will do that even to today. I will do that. No? Because I'm crazy. So that's one thing about men being crazy. No? We can be crazy. No? And so are women crazy also? Are women crazy? Okay, this question, men, you're not allowed to answer this question, all right? This is only for the Mataji's, only for the ladies. Are ladies crazy? It's unanimous, right? Okay. Let's look at why women are crazy, you know? And to understand this, see, most of us are going to get married, right? So we need to understand what men want and what women want. And even if you're not going to get married, it helps to understand what women want and what men want, no? So what do women want, no? Fundamentally, we're all looking for happiness, no? And so it is the duty of a man to inspire a woman, no? So it's said that, oh, the woman must cook for the man when he comes home, you know, that's her duty, you know? And so, okay, I'm okay with that. But for her to do that, the man must inspire the woman, no? This is real leadership, right? If he wants to be the guru of the family, he must inspire the woman to do that, no? And you don't inspire the woman by shouting at her, by beating her, no? That's dictatorship, that's not leadership. A real leader says, let's do this, no? Not go and do this, no? A leader inspires, he doesn't force, no? So it's like this, you want your wife to cook for you? Then inspire her to do that, no? Wash the dishes. Is that so difficult to do? No? So in any relationship, the secret to any healthy relationship is that the more you give, the more you receive. Is that the nature of a healthy relationship is to give. The nature of a parasitic relationship is to unhealthily just take and take and take. So this is the beauty of a healthy relationship. It's about giving more than you take. And so the wife shouldn't just sit there and say, oh, well, you heard what he said, you just give, give, give. No. It's about reciprocation, no? It's about you give and she gives, no? And the more you give hate, animosity, anger, and greed, the more hate, animosity, anger, and greed you'll have. And the more you'll give love and patience and respect and tolerance, the more of these qualities you'll have, no? So we'll very quickly look at the psychosocial makeup of women, right? Like I said, they swayed a little bit more by emotions than a man, generally, right? Which is why, like, who can go shopping for 4 hours and not buy anything? Who can do that? Generally, women can do that, no? Generally, it's a generalization, no? Okay, do this, no? It's like, if you go home, right, if you have sisters or if you have a mother or if you have any female living with you, who has more clothes? Who has more shoes? Who has more things? See, a man, like, this dhoti is missing a button, no? And I don't care. Now, it may disturb a woman that, oh, she's going out and she's, oh, I'm missing a button, you know, how can I do that? Sometimes the top doesn't match the bottom of my dhoti, you know, I don't care, you know. Once I wore 2 different shoes, means one was like one shoe and one was a different shoe. And I didn't feel like going up the flight of stairs to change it, so I just went out in public like that, you know. Can a woman do that? Generally not. Generally, women get more attached to things, no? Generally, they have more shoes. Generally, they have more clothes. Generally, they have more makeup, no? Generally, due to the psychosocial nature of the woman. Generally, the woman is more attached to children, no? More attached to the family. If you go to a funeral, who cries more, men or women? The lady cries more, generally, no? Of course she has the liberty to cry. Look at her psychosocial makeup. look at the nature of the woman, right? She carries in her own body. Can you imagine this? She's carrying in her own body another living being that for 9 months, it's like the two souls become one in one sense, right? And when it comes out of the body, she's nurturing it from her own body. She's raising that child that is created in her image also, that it looks like her, sounds like her, no? And such deep attachment is there, no? It's only natural that she has the liberty to experience this, no? And so generally, women are more attached to things, no? Like a man, he can have khichdi every day, no? It's said that a woman eats 2 times more than a man. So it's not that a woman eats 2 times more in quantity. A woman eats 2 times more in quality. Generally, a man can go out for many hours and he doesn't have to eat anything. It's okay, you know. But a woman may need to snack something, you know. A man can eat the same meal over and over longer than a woman. A woman eats 2 times more than a man in the sense that she requires more variety, you know. That kachori should be there. Rice, dal, sabji, more things will be there. Now, generally, it is like that. You know? So what you can do is do an experiment. See if what I'm saying applies to you, honestly. You know? Honestly. Right? So like that, man is good and woman is good. It's just that we have different psychosocial makeups. You know? Generally, women get attached to things a little bit more, which is not a good or a bad thing. Also, generally, women come to more spiritual discourses than men. Because, see, emotions are that thing, it's like a glue that allows the mind to get caught onto something. So it's easier for women to pick up to a devotional sentiment, to a religious or spiritual practice. It's easy for her to get attached to deity worship, to reading Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. It takes a little bit more time for man, because he's more analytical, rational in his thinking. You know? So it takes longer for men, generally. So these are different psychosocial makeups of a man and a woman. And to be in a healthy, happy relationship, we have to understand these things. That we're not created equally on the platform of body. On the platform of soul, there is equality. You know? But it's not that man is better than woman and woman is better than man. We have different psychosocial makeups. And to understand ourselves is another secret to happiness. You know? So 2 more points we need to discuss, or we can discuss. Should I continue? So 2 things we'll look at is how knowledge turns into wisdom, and we'll end discussing a case study about the real happiness in life. So it won't take more than 10 minutes or so, right? In order to understand how knowledge turns to wisdom we'll give an example. We'll tell a story. You know? So this is a story about a king, right? He's a Vedic king, a very intelligent person, very pious king also. So he's a Vedic king, and who are Vedic kings instructed by? Means that when it's time for the king to make very important decisions within society, who is the king instructed by? The older, intelligent class, the Brahmin class, right? So he had advisors or counselors, the Brahmin class, right? To instruct him on various decisions. And he took care of them expertly, right? And they were very highly paid also. And so one day he was very angry, very annoyed with them. And he called all of them into his chamber. He felt that they were overly paid and underworked, you know? And so the citizens were coming and giving the king gifts, you know, for his wonderful work that he was doing. And one of the gifts that they gave him was a human skull. A human skull, right? A weird gift to receive, but still, the king, being gracious, being truly humble, he took the gift and he thanked the citizen, right? And so he called for all his advisors to come into his chambers, right? And so he told them, my dear advisors, my dear ministers, I want to know the man who belonged to the skull, the man who was in that body, that is now a skull, right? Was he a clever man? Was he a fool? Or was he an intelligent person? Was he a fool or was he an intelligent person? He told them that if you don't get this answer right, and if I'm not happy with this answer, off with your head. So some enthusiasm. And so they were starting to sweat. And so they didn't know what to do. They were like, how can you tell? How can you tell if he's an intelligent man? How can you tell if he's a fool? I don't know. And so the most intelligent there, the Vipra. The Vipra means a realized Brahmana. No? The Vipra who had realized knowledge, whose knowledge had turned to wisdom. He said, Your Majesty, Maharaj, that I can say. And so this Brahmana, he asks for a piece of rope. He says, please bring a piece of rope. And he says, no problem, we'll bring you a piece of rope. He takes this piece of rope. And he takes it from one side of the ear of this skull. And he pulls it from one side of the ear, and he takes it out the other side of the ear. No? He's doing like that. No? And then he holds it up. And he says, Your Majesty, this man was definitely a fool. No? And the king says, please explain yourself. He's saying that for a fool, knowledge enters from one side of the ear and goes out the other side. No? And so similarly, just like how this rope is able to go from left cranium to right cranium through the orifice of the ears, this man is a fool. No? And so the king was very impressed by that. No? And so I tell the story because this is our position. I say ours, this is my position also. No? That we hear spiritual knowledge. What to speak of material knowledge? We hear spiritual knowledge. No? And it enters one ear and comes out the other ear. No? Like material sound vibration that we hear when we turn the YouTube on. No? Enters one ear and comes out the other ear because it's not active listening. Active listening means I listen to something and how can I apply it into my life? This is to eat strategy for breakfast, to eat the strategy of real wisdom for breakfast. No? And then that way, when you actively listen, then you start to walk Bhagavad Gita. Then you start to see what I heard, how can I apply it into my life? Because people think going to a holy place, going to a temple, going to the holy dhams like Vrindavan or Mathura, they think transportation is the same as transformation. Transportation and transformation are two different things. When knowledge goes from the head and into the heart, then transformation happens. Then lust is not destroyed, but is transformed. It's revolutionized into love. Selfishness into selflessness. But this only happens when you eat the culture of spiritual knowledge. When you eat that knowledge. When it doesn't go from one ear out the other ear. No? This is real intelligence. No? And this is when knowledge becomes wisdom. No? So, what is knowledge? Knowledge to know is a tomato is a fruit. Knowledge is to know a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is to not put the tomato in a fruit salad. You getting the point? It's a subtle thing. No? It's a subtle thing. And this is what spiritual knowledge offers you. Because material knowledge is good, not that we throw it out. But when you really imbibe spiritual knowledge, is that you increase your material knowledge also. But it results in transformation, a revolution of the heart. No? And we raise our consciousness. It's not that we become God, but we develop godly-like qualities of real masculinity, you know, of compassion and kindness and tolerance and respect and understanding. And so men should acquire these qualities, and women should also acquire these qualities. And men should also acquire feminine qualities. High emotional IQ, which is a feminine quality, means to be sensitive to the needs of others. Means empathy means to walk in the shoes of somebody else. It means to respect every other being. No? In the Bhagavatam, this consciousness, this high level of IQ, which is a feminine quality, which is glorious, is referred to as apara dukkha dukhi. That my happiness or my suffering is relative only to the suffering of those around me. And for as long as we're thinking we are the body, for as long as we're thinking if we fill an empty heart with material things, I will be happy, this is depressing. This is the opposite of happiness. This is sadness. This is to be a walking corpse. You know? So the grass is not always greener on the other side. It is greener where you water it. And so as a human being, you have rationale and logic, and especially born in Bharatvarsha, you know, you have the opportunity to water the seed of devotion, the seed of love, the seed of spiritual knowledge. You know? And so we'll end on this point. Our last slide that we'll look at today is a case study. Should we continue? Is that okay? Our last point that we'll make today, and fundamentally, what we spoke thus far is a culmination to this. So please pay very careful attention. Is that everything we discussed so far are secrets to happiness, right? But relative happiness, temporal happiness. What we'll discuss now is a secret, an open secret, to eternal happiness. This is a picture of somebody called Wilma Rudolph. Right? Wilma Rudolph was born in the late 1940s. And she was born with a birth defect, as you can see in this picture. And she was born in a very poor family. And her mother, took her to the doctor, the doctors put this brace on her leg. And the doctors told her that you'll never ever walk again in your life without the aid of this walking device, without the aid of this brace. You know? And can you imagine that at the age of like 4 or 5, when they tell you this, that you have to use this walking device, that you have to use crutches and this walking device on your leg for the rest of your life. You know? It's very depressing. You know? It's very sad. And so, like that, she turns to her mother, and her mother, she asks her mother, while all the doctors are there, you know, she asks her mother, "Mother, is this true? Will I, for the rest of my life, will I be forced to be in a state of a crippled person, a disabled person?" You know? And her mother says something very interesting. Her mother says no. Her mother says that if you follow and practice with faith and determination, that you can do anything, that the sky is the limit, you know? And she really imbibed this within her heart, you know? And when she said this, do you know what the doctors' response was? There were 4 doctors, they're all medical experts, specialists, that they started to giggle a little bit under their breath, you know? Make a little bit of fun of a mother's sentiment. The imaginations of a little child, they said. You know? Intelligent people. You know? So anyway, she allowed this culture to be eaten, entered through the ears and into the heart, and she imbibed it. You know? And so every day she would practice walking on her crutches and trying to strengthen her legs, little by little, every day. And she never gave up, she never gave in. And then after some time, obviously she got a little older and she went to primary school. You know? And in primary school, she must have been like about maybe 12 years old. And she entered in her first 100-meter sprint. You know? So at 12, she got a little bit stronger, and she was able to give up the use of her crutches. But still, the brace that she was using was still there. So even with that, she entered in a race with so-called able-bodied people, right? And when the starter's gun fired for the 100-meter race, where do you think she came? So not only did she come last, she came last way, way, way in the back, no? Because still she's limping along, right? Age 12, but she didn't give up, no? Age 14, every day she practices. And through that determination and courage, she gives up the use of the walking device, no? And again, at age 14, still there's a bit of a limp while she walks, no? But she's getting stronger and stronger. At age 14, she enters high school, enters the 100-meter race. And now where does she place? Not only is she last, she's last, way in the back, no? But still, she didn't give up and she didn't give in, no? And so in 1960, that same little girl, obviously in 1960 she wasn't a little girl anymore. Her name was Wilma Rudolph. And in the 1960s Olympics, she won 3 gold medals, setting the fastest speed in the 100 meters for a female athlete. You know? And what did the doctors tell her? You'll never ever walk again. The imagination of a little girl. You know? And so for her, whether she won or lost was immaterial. No? But the fact that she took part, that was the biggest thing. No? And that when she did take part, she left nothing in the tank. She gave her heart, she gave her soul. She fought with grit and determination. And she succeeded because when they interviewed her, they asked her, why didn't you just give up? No? And she said that she imbibed the words of her mother. She said that my faith and determination came from God. She said that He simply used me as an instrument. That it's not that I just sat at home and I did nothing. It's that with faith and determination, I understood that the supreme power comes from the supreme source, the supreme Lord. And with faith and determination, I surrendered to Him and I tried my best. Whether I won or lost was immaterial to me. But with all my heart and all my soul, I gave in to this process, understanding that the Lord will help me. No? And so like that, we can learn from her patience and determination. That the journey to happiness, one is not the 100-meter race, but it's a marathon. And so like that, similarly with the spiritual journey, or the spiritual path to real happiness. It's not a 100-meter race. It is a marathon, right? And so they say, this is our last slide, and we'll end here for today. They say, when it rains, look for the stars. When it rains, look for rainbows. When it's dark, look for the stars. You know? So, remember when we started the discourse, I said, we'll speak about many secrets to happiness. No? And fundamentally, this is the one main secret. And I'll quote a great scientist and a great spiritualist, Albert Einstein, who said that you can't solve a problem with the same consciousness that it was used to create it. You can't solve a problem with the same consciousness that was used to create it. So if you try to solve material problems with material solutions, you'll create more problems. Yeah? But if you solve material problems with spiritual solutions, you get an eternal resolution. Because it's an elevation of consciousness. It's a revolution of heart. No? And so, to be happy is not to be free of problems. Your problem is not the problem, it's your focus. For as long as you focus on the problem, you'll never be happy. But when you focus on the solution, and when you focus on an eternal and lasting solution, then you'll have eternal happiness. No? Then you'll have in Sanskrit what is called Ananda. So the problem is not your problem, it's your focus. And when you use spiritual solutions to answer your material problems, then you'll have eternal solutions, right? And so like that, when problems come, don't ever give up, no? And so I'll end on this point, is that, does everybody know who's Winston Churchill? and we'll end on this note, is that after the war was over, the Second World War, Winston Churchill was one of the most famous and influential people at the time in the world. And Yale paid, I don't know how much, but can you imagine how much they would have paid for him to give the last address to the students that passed out at Yale that year, right? And so they fly him by helicopter to a hall packed with thousands of students, intelligent people who have just graduated from Yale. He comes by helicopter, walks onto the podium. People have been waiting so long to hear him speak. He takes out his speech. He looks at his speech. He squashes his speech, he puts it in his pocket. And he says something very interesting. He says, never give up, never give up, never give up. He puts the mic down and he walks off stage. Can you imagine? Can you imagine him doing that? And so like that was his realization at the time. They won the war because they won the war because they lost so many battles, but they didn't give up. That was his realization. And in this material battle, in this war that we wage daily with ourselves, with the monsters within our heart, with lust, with greed, with animosity, with thinking we are better than others, with this war that we wage with ourselves, we may lose the battle some days. And that's okay. It's okay to not be okay, but it's not okay to not work on yourself. So if you fall down 7 times, not if, when you fall down 7 times, because it's guaranteed that you will fall down, wake up 8 times. Falling down is not the issue. Learn from your fall down. Fall down 7 times, wake up 8. And this is the beauty of living or walking a spiritual path, is that in the material life, we all are in the gutter. We all are in the dirt and contamination and filth of material existence. No? We all have this contamination on us that is covering the pure soul, that is covering who we really are. And so we're all in the gutter of life. No? But those on the spiritual path are looking at the stars. Are looking at the stars. So I'll end on this point, is that it's not important what you did in the past. It's not important where you are now. What is important is your focus, is your gaze. And one that's looking at the spiritual sky, at the superhero, no? Then for them, their life is glorious now and will be glorious in the future. And that is the real secret to happiness. That is to truly seize the day. That is carpe diem. Having a problem is not the problem. It's your focus. And spiritual solutions are eternal resolutions to everlasting problems. So we'll end on this point. And I just like to thank everybody to coming for this discourse today.